Vince Clayton was the target of one of the most expensive police operations we've seen in New Zealand. He was meant to be one of the kingpins in a Christchurch underworld crime syndicate, and he was imprisoned for his part in it. But then Vinny came across something quite unusual that would get him and his co-accused out of jail. Paula Penfold has the story.
How long have you kids been living here?
4 years.
One at a time. Oi, chill. Hey, keep your hands out of my pocket.
He loves a yarn, loves an audience. Fair to say, Vince Clayton is a bit of a hard case. People that know you as Big Vinny.
Big fat Vinny.
It kind of suits you.
Well, when you're 120 odd kilos and your name's Vince, it's the two come together pretty quickly. Big Vinny. Yeah.
Nothing sinister in that.
No, not at all. I've been much.
Sounds kind of mafioso.
Oh, I mean, it's got that sound to it too. But much to my mother's horror, I've been called Vinny since I was about 5 years old. This is where sort of all the fun and games happen, because once you get inside them, it's just like a rabbit's warren of corridors and stairways and alleyways. So this is sort of where all the young kids get up to no good.
Little Vinny was one of those kids growing up on a council housing estate in Melbourne. When he was 18, his mother sent him to Christchurch for what she hoped would be a better future. But in the end, he landed in prison. Unfairly, he says, and the courts did eventually agree. You spent how long in jail?
14 months, 4 days and about 12 hours.
What goes through your head when you're in prison, believing that you shouldn't be?
How am I going to right the wrong? How am I going to get justice? How am I going to get out of this without getting myself in more trouble?
It's a jungle out there.
Big Vinny did get out of jail early, but not because he proved his innocence. What was proved was that the Crown woefully mishandled the case against him. To his way of thinking, they were out to get him. He managed to show that he never got a fair trial. As a result, his convictions, which had cost us, the taxpayers, millions of dollars, were overturned, and Vinny walked free. You're no angel, though.
No, hell no. Hell no. And it would never profess to be. I've had my run-ins with the law in the past, don't deny it, never hidden the fact.
He does indeed have something of a criminal history, fraud convictions for writing bad cheques many years ago, to which he pleaded guilty, 2 receiving convictions in the late 90s, another albeit minor fraud in 2004. And then police investigating a burglary and receiving ring came knocking. Operation Rhino.
Operation Pinocchio, we like to call it.
At the height of the 3-year investigation, 1,300 stolen items were recovered, taken from houses under construction around Christchurch. You name it, it was there. Vince Clayton pleaded guilty to a drug-related count and 10 fraud charges. But he was adamant he would not confess to a long list of receiving charges. You weren't prepared to do that this time?
No way.
Because
I didn't do nothing wrong. So I'm not going to admit to something I didn't do.
So what was Vinny's defence? That sure, he bought the stuff, well, some of it at least, but he didn't know it was stolen. To understand how that might be plausible, you have to know what makes him tick. He ran 3 Christchurch pubs, but was also, shall we say, a wheeler dealer, buying things, anything, he says, as long as it was cheap. What would you buy?
Probably easy to answer what I wouldn't buy. There was pretty. I've bought some pretty outrageous sort of stuff at auctions. I've bought the carpet off the floors. I've bought the timber off the walls. You name it. I've probably bought it once or twice.
Were you making money out of buying that stuff cheap and flicking it on?
Wouldn't have done it if I wasn't.
And so Vince Clayton doesn't deny his dealings with the burglar at the centre of the ring, a man whose name is still suppressed, a man who would become the key Crown witness, described as the glue that held the case together. That burglar was selling you stuff.
Correct.
What was he selling you?
Generally, it was appliances and hardware to do with the building industry. There was just an array of materials.
Big Vinny's version of events is that he believed the man was an agent disposing of unwanted and damaged goods on behalf of hardware and building companies. You must have been suspicious that that stuff was hot. Can you look me in the eye and tell me you genuinely did not know that stuff was stolen property?
If I knew it was stolen property, I wouldn't have bought it. If I knew it was stolen property, I wouldn't have you guys sitting here. If I knew I was buying stolen property, I would have copped it on the chin, done my jail, got out, moved on with my life.
The other main target of Operation Rhino, who also says he unfairly did time, is this man, 65-year-old Peter Mackairis. With a long history as a bookie and massage parlour owner, he's been described as the face of the Christchurch underworld, and as a man Vince Clayton calls a friend. He has an interesting past, you now know.
Oh yeah, I know Pete's past, and what other people do is their business. I don't hold it against anyone else who's, we've all made mistakes in life, me included. But why am I going to hold that against someone?
The Operation Rhino case had all the hallmarks of a major underworld syndicate, although it was hardly the stuff of underbelly. Peter Mackairis was the alleged kingpin, Vince Clayton, his 2IC, and at the centre of it all, the self-confessed burglar. It was his word against Mackairis and Clayton's. Credibility was a crucial issue. Which is why the defence was eager to explore throughout the case what benefits the burglar was getting in return for giving evidence. He'd already pleaded guilty and had his sentence reduced for his cooperation with Operation Rhino. But in the meantime, he'd been charged over another crime spree and a violent attack. Mackairis and Clayton remained convinced that a further deal must have been done over those crimes.
Right through before he gave evidence at trial, I made application to exclude his evidence because I knew there's only one reason he's given evidence against me. Because he must be getting something. He must be receiving something from the police, the Crown, or both, because I know he's not telling the truth. So why is he up there telling a lie? There has to be a reason for it.
But time and again, as legal arguments swung back and forth, the court was told the burglar had nothing more to gain by testifying against Clayton and Mackairis. Their attempts to have the burglar's evidence thrown out were stymied after Crown prosecutor Pip Curry produced this statement to the court. It said that the burglar had pleaded guilty to the crime spree and assault charges, and included a quote from the sentencing judge in that case, which appeared to say that the burglar wasn't gaining any advantage by giving evidence. The jury found both Mackairis and Clayton guilty, and they were sent to jail. In what transpired, it's important to remember that whether you think they're innocent or just got lucky isn't the point. What's at stake is the foundation of our legal system, open justice and the right to a fair trial. Neither Mackairis nor Clayton were prepared to let their fight go, and from their cells they continued to dig into what had gone on. Months into his jail sentence, Vince Clayton came across a document which he'd never seen before and which he knew was crucial to the case. Did you realise immediately the significance of what you were reading?
Certainly did. Certainly did. Yeah. It was, it's one of those defining moments in your life where you remember exactly where you were, what you were doing. I remember it clear as day.
The document was the full version of sentencing notes from which Prosecutor Curry had included just one paragraph in the statement she presented to the court. The full document showed that, in fact, the burglar would have his sentence for the crime spree almost halved, including a significant discount because of the Christchurch trial. In other words, for giving evidence against Mackairis and Clayton, a fact that the jury, the trial judge and the defence were never told.
Did you right there and then see it as a get-out-of-jail card?
I would never have considered it a get-out-of-jail card. I considered it as I can show the facts, I can show the truth. Get-out-of-jail card to me means you found a loophole in the system. It's not a loophole in the system as far as I'm concerned. I can prove it.
In trials, a fundamental principle is that the Crown must disclose all inducements given to a witness because, of course, it could alter the jury's perception of whether they're telling the truth. An inducement had indeed been given, but not only was it not disclosed, it was repeatedly denied. Prosecutor Curry had told the court there had been no reward, no prize for the burglar. Armed with the new information, which they'd suspected all along, Mackairis and Clayton took their cases to the Court of Appeal.
The Court of Appeal, in the end, agreed.
Thank God. Thank God. There's somebody, whoever sits at the Court of Appeal had taken the time to actually go through everything, not brush it off, and read the facts.
Ruled that there had been a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, a pretty blatant miscarriage of justice.
The Court of Appeal found that the trial miscarried when Prosecutor Curry presented her statement, but not the full sentencing notes, and that the accused were placed at an unfair disadvantage. It set aside the convictions and ordered a retrial, but the Crown opted not to go ahead with it.
There we go, it's a large special.
Vince Clayton was a free man, back with his family.
The wider implications on my family, absolutely devastating. The two young boys were at probably the most influential point of their lives, just moving into teenage years. Never had their dad out of their life for a day, or all of a sudden dad's ripped out of their life.
We wanted to ask Prosecutor Curry why she didn't disclose the full facts to the court. Did she do it on purpose, or was it just a mistake? She declined to be interviewed, but in a statement, the Crown Solicitor's Office in Christchurch told us that the information conveyed to the court was genuinely believed to be accurate. The Court of Appeal says whether or not she thought it was correct, it was inaccurate and did not properly apprise the judge or counsel of the true position. Meanwhile, we're prevented at this stage from reporting two other legal matters relating to this case. And there's another voice that hasn't been heard, that of the burglar. He told us that he stands by his evidence, but that he believes there's now a price on his head.
The burglar says he fears for his life.
Well, unfortunately, when you go around the country making a habit out of telling lies about people, or telling tales on other people, or concocting outrageous stories about people, you're going to make enemies.
Are you an enemy?
Couldn't give a shit about him, to be honest. Don't. Look, you can imagine, I've got a lot of animosity towards him. A lot of animosity towards him. Enemy? No. Not an enemy.
Well, he fears for his life because of you.
That's his problem, not mine. I treat him like I would treat a piece of chewing gum stuck to the bottom of my foot. Not worthy of anything except dragging along the ground to get rid of. I've got no interest in seeing him, speaking to him. He's got nothing to fear from me.
Big Vinny says his energies are concentrated legally elsewhere. He admits to becoming obsessed with righting the wrong done to him, and he wants action, an apology and compensation for his time behind bars.
Is there an irony, though, in the fact that you're now complaining about having been wronged when you've committed wrongs yourself?
Two wrongs don't make a right. So for her to do what she's done, there's no justification. You cannot justify what she's done to me, whether I'm innocent or guilty. If a man's guilty, prosecute him, present your evidence, let the jury decide.
Can't you just move on?
No
You're
way.
out of jail now.
Yeah, it's great that I'm out of jail, but I should never have been put in jail. So for anyone to say, well, you got out of jail, you should be happy with that. No way. Yeah, I'm happy I got out of jail. I'm not happy for the reasons I went there. And until something's done, I'm not going to stop. I will never stop.
Coming up.
I couldn't get pregnant and we wanted another baby. I get emotional even talking about it because I'm so grateful to her.
Can I ask a personal question? Were you at the birth?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's next on 60 Minutes.